Is Caitlin close? How's she coming along?
Dude, I don't know. Everyone keeps asking. Everyone's like, and I'm like, literally, she doesn't even know. Like, it's just like a day by day legit type of thing. And so, yeah, she's close. But like, you also have to remember, like, she could be playing if it wasn't in the WNBA by now. But like at this level, with how deep and like how good people are nowadays in our league, which is the best it's ever been, like you can't just be good. You have to be on top of your game. And so just trying to get her back in game shape, I think, is what they're trying to do. But like, again, it's literally a day by day. I'm not holding out any information.
Caitlin Clark is reportedly leaving the WNBA, packed her things, and traveling to Europe, according to other channels. They are peddling that narrative, but it is wholly untrue. The actual tale? Almost no one is discussing Sophie Cunningham's recent confession, which completely upends everything. This is the insane part. The truth is concealed in plain sight as millions of people view videos that are based on false information. Sophie did not hesitate. She disclosed something on her own podcast that ought to raise a straightforward query for every WNBA fan. Can the best names in this league survive? And be aware of this before we continue. Sophie Cunningham is more than simply a player trying to get attention. Because she told the truth, she was fined thousands of dollars by the league. She is the unofficial whistleblower for the WNBA. Furthermore, her recent disclosure of Caitlin Clark's circumstances goes far beyond a simple injury update. If Sophie is correct, Caitlin's absence isn't just related to her recuperation. It has to do with unrealistic expectations, selective protection, and a structure that may be working against the very players that helped the league establish enormous popularity. While other networks promote fictitious headlines, let's examine Sophie's true statements, strong enough to cost her thousands of dollars, and discover what they actually say about Caitlin, the WNBA, and the league's future. Not only is Sophie Cunningham voicing her opinions, but she is actually suffering the consequences. She was penalized almost $3,000 by the WNBA in 2024 alone for sharing information that the league would prefer to keep hidden. Take a moment to consider that. She lost $500 on a single TikTok comment about referees. An additional $1,500 was spent on a podcast piece that highlighted officiating irregularities. Furthermore, the punishment amount was not even revealed when she called out obvious favoritism, the kind that every fan witnesses, but no one in the league acknowledges. They simply gave her a penalty and went on. After the first blow to their paycheck, the majority of players would have stopped talking. Recall that WNBA wages vary from roughly $64,000 to $242,000 annually. A significant portion of money can be consumed by losing even $1,500. Imagine having a job where, as a result of being honest on a podcast, 2% of your yearly compensation vanishes. Almost anyone would be silenced by that. However, Sophie never stopped speaking, which is precisely why her voice is important. She's not just another athlete who chases attention or makes excuses. To bring attention to the unsettling reality of this league, she is jeopardizing the stability of her own career. Sophie's podcast has emerged as the only source where fans can hear the unvarnished, behind-the-scenes truth about what's truly going on inside the WNBA, while everyone else tries to be cautious. Fans knew they had to pay attention when she eventually talked about Caitlin Clark because of this. Sophie has already demonstrated that she is prepared to pay the penalties, take the criticism, and carry on. She has emerged as the league's unofficial whistleblower, a player who will stop at nothing to avoid being silenced. Additionally, her most recent admission alters more than simply the story of Caitlin's recuperation. It reveals a far more profound issue with what it truly takes to thrive in the modern WNBA. Sophie Cunningham casually said something on her podcast on August 19th that stopped fans cold. As reporters continued to inquire about Caitlin Clark's anticipated return date, Sophie interrupted the chatter with a remark that completely altered the discourse. If it weren't already in the WNBA, she might be competing. Give that some thought. This isn't a haphazard fan conjecturing on Twitter. This current WNBA player, who has first-hand knowledge of Caitlin's circumstances, claims that the league she plays in is more to blame for her continued absence than the injury itself. The typical update that she is healing was what most people anticipated. It's day by day, but we'll see how she feels next week. However, Sophie went on to explain why this particular circumstance is unique. Even the greatest college athletes of all time are unable to just return to the WNBA because of the fierce competition and rigorous physical standards. Here's the crucial information. Caitlin wasn't being called weak by Sophie. She actually made it very apparent that Caitlin's work ethic and toughness have nothing to do with this. Sophie was pointing out that even a generational star needs more time to achieve the WNBA's requirements because it has become so physically demanding. Consider the implications of that. College basketball was dominated by Caitlin Clark. She sold out venues, carried Iowa on her back, and propelled TV ratings to unprecedented heights for women's basketball. However, according to Sophie, those achievements don't often transcend to the WNBA. You can't just be good here. You must be perfect. The shocking revelation Sophie made was that the league will devour you if you're not physically, psychologically, and competitively prepared. Caitlyn's absence isn't due to a frail body or a weak ankle. It has to do with the WNBA itself. Even the best players in the league can't run back without taking a huge risk because it is so hard. If it sounds harsh, it's just the start. Because Sophie not only brought attention to Caitlyn's hardship, she also revealed a much more serious issue with the way this league handles its players and the reasons why the standards might be unachievable. Sophie wasn't lying when she mentioned that Caitlyn might be playing if it weren't in the WNBA. She was drawing attention to a reality that isn't often apparent to fans. There are no other women's basketball leagues like this one. The physicality, depth, and quickness. It has gotten to the point where there is no such thing as good enough. Sophie had her own explanation. You can't just be decent at this level given how deep and excellent people are in our league right now, which is the best it's ever been. You must be at the top of your game. Every player must meet that criterion. The terrible reality is as follows. Talent is not the only factor. It's about making it through a league that, according to Sophie, feels more like rugby than hoops. Players openly discuss the need for armor simply to survive a game. The hits are harsher, and there is continual contact. For someone like Caitlyn, consider the implications of it. She was untouchable at Iowa. Her technique, vision, and shooting range were too much for opponents to match. Even though she is healthy, she plays against the world's best defenders every night in the WNBA, where referees frequently allow the game to go as physical as possible. In that setting, recovering from an injury is not only dangerous, but also possibly career-damaging. Caitlyn may already be back on the court, maybe abroad or at college. However, perfection or nothing is the standard in this competition. That poses a more significant query. Is the WNBA positioning its stars for success or failure if it has become a sport where players need body armor just to survive? Because Sophie's admission isn't just about one player's rehabilitation if a generational talent like Caitlin Clark is made to sit out longer due to how harsh the league has gotten rather than her own toughness. It concerns if anyone can live up to the WNBA's unachievable expectations. In actuality, the issue extends beyond the physical demands. A system of favoritism that modifies the game based on who is on the floor has already been revealed by Sophie, and it is equally harmful. As if the WNBA's unachievable requirements weren't difficult enough, Sophie disclosed something much more contentious. Not everyone is subject to the same standards. She discussed what transpired when her squad faced Paige Buckers on her show. Even though Sophie expressed her admiration for Paige's skill, she was unable to overlook the officiating. Her exact words were direct. Last night, those referees gave her every single whistle. She was literally untouchable. Was unable to touch her. And I find that really annoying. That goes beyond simple annoyance during a stressful situation. A two-tiered structure is demonstrated by that. One in which some celebrities receive bubble wrap treatment while others are left to take every blow without any defense. The worst part is that when Sophie dared to bring it up, the league fined her thousands of dollars for saying what every spectator could see with their own eyes. Consider what that means. A player who calls out favoritism is punished, but the favoritism itself remains untouched. Furthermore, this is not the first time it has occurred. Sophie has received numerous fines for calling attention to inconsistent officiating, and the league has always sent out the same message: give up speaking. But Sophie doesn't stop talking. She has also revealed one of the most unsettling facts about the WNBA. Not only does the league need perfection, but perfection is evaluated differently based on an individual's identity. Some players require a whistle in order to be touched at all. While officials ignore the whistle, others, including Caitlin, are thrown into the fire and fight through violent contact. This is when the league situation becomes really challenging, because the legitimacy of the entire product is called into question if spectators begin to think that referees are shielding some aspects of the game while exposing others. Sophie put countless at danger by saying it aloud. But what happens if more players begin to support her as the evidence continues to mount? Sophie has been fined to remain silent about this terrible reality. And it immediately brings up the next issue, which is the lack of information on Caitlin Clark's injury. Because what occurs off the court may be even more concerning if favoritism is influencing what occurs on the court. This is the most bizarre aspect of all the hype around Caitlin Clark's injury. In reality, nobody is aware of what is happening. Nor the media, nor the supporters. Not even her teammates, according to Sophie Cunningham. Sophie confessed on her podcast.